with a quote from Doug Tallamy, who wrote the book Bringing Nature Home. And if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it if you are interested in native plants and wildlife and other animals, particularly birds too. His quote is, "By favoring native plants over aliens or non-native plants in the landscape, gardeners can do much to sustain the biodiversity that has been one of the country's richest assets. Native plants support and produce more insects than alien or non-native plants, and therefore more numbers and species of other animals." So basically what he's saying is that really all it comes down to is native plants. If you have the native plants, then you attract insects, which then attract other wildlife and species. Since they eat plants, they then provide access to the energy stored in plants for other things that eat them. 96% of the terrestrial or the land bird species in North America rely on insects to feed their young. So that's almost all of the bird species that we have around in our area need insects for feeding their young. The insects also return the nutrients that are tied up in dead plants and animals to the soil. So those are our decomposers that do that work. They aerate and enrich the soil. So think about other decomposers and beetles and earthworms for that. And then they also provide food either directly or indirectly for most other animals. A clutch of black-capped chickadee nestlings needs more than 5,000 insects over 16 to 18 days while they're in the nest and until they can leave the nest and forage on their own. And if you do the math on that between those days, that's about 300 caterpillars or insects a day that the parents have to go out and get and bring back for all those hungry nestlings. So think about that when you're choosing what plants to put in your yard and thinking about native versus ornamental or things like that. So what do bees and insects need? Well, a lot of our bees are actually ground nesting bees, so small patches of bare ground are really helpful for our ground nesting bees. You can see in this picture those red arrows point to little tiny holes in the ground, which were made by bees that excavate those and they lay their eggs in the ground. It's helpful to plant in blocks or clumps of the same species of plants in one area, because then that helps to reduce the foraging effort and the distance that they have to go to find more of that same plant. Bees and insects can also lay their eggs in hollow sticks and twigs. So if you provide those materials for them, you can attract bees to your yard. Be free of pesticides. Don't use pesticides around your house because those kill insects. And then also plant a variety of locally native plants that flower throughout the season, which is really important for different insects and bees that emerge at different times of the year. This is a great picture that I took on OSU campus several years ago, and it was this awesome little way to display nests for bees using all different sizes of wood, and you can see some of the hollow sticks in there, and then also they drilled holes into that wood of different diameters, so then different species of insects use those holes, and you can see that several of them are already kind of plugged and covered with mud, so different insects have been using those to lay their eggs.